Okay, Carla, so you can go ahead and start the meeting anytime.
Great, thank you. Welcome to today's LABTA board meeting. It is July 12th at 4:03. And in compliance with Governor Newsom's executive order on June 5th and updated June 18th, this meeting will be held virtually. And that is also under Executive Order N2920. Could our clerk please take roll?
I am going to hold for just a minute. David came in as somebody in the public, so let me go ahead and promote him to panelist.
Great, terrific. While you're doing that, if anybody would like to submit written comments, we do welcome written comments. They are due by 1 o'clock today, June 12th. So
Okay,
we will
so
eventually get back to in person though.
let me go ahead and do roll call. Director Bonanno.
Here.
Vice Chair Halbert.
Here.
Director Hernandez.
Here.
Director Josie.
Here.
Director Kick, and she is not in the meeting right now. Director Narum.
Here.
Chair Brown.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Excellent. So we're going to do a meeting open to the public. Members of the audience may address the board of directors on any matter within the general subject matter of the LABTA board of directors. Unless members of the audience submit a speaker form before they start the meeting or requesting to address the board on specific items, all comments must be made during this item of business. Speaker cards are available back in the good old days at the entrance to the door. Public comments should not exceed 3 minutes. Do we have anyone from the public wishing to speak today?
So we have one person in the public. If they would like to speak, if they could please hit *9 on their phone or raise their hand if they're joining by computer. It doesn't look like they have anything to say, and we didn't receive any public comments via email.
All right, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing on the general discussion items. And do we have any changes to the agenda from staff? Mr. Tree?
No, we don't.
Okay, any changes to the agenda, like pulling a consent item for regular discussion from the board? Great, seeing none, we'll go ahead and I will entertain a motion or discussion.
Move approval for consent.
Carla, Gina Bonanno has her hand raised.
Oh, my apologies, Gina. Do you have
No
a
worry.
comment, question, or?
No, my question is whether I need to recuse or we need to take one of the consent items off and vote separately on item A, the minutes from the June 7th meeting.
You don't have
I
to.
wasn't on the
You
board
don't
then.
have to. It is up to you. You could also just abstain.
From the whole calendar or just from that
Oh,
item?
no, I'm sorry. Yes, you could. You can vote on that. I mean, you're just trusting your colleagues to have read the minutes and agree with them.
Very good. I just wanted to double check. So I'll just vote and we can keep it all together if
Okay,
that's the
perfect.
chair's preference.
Common
Thank you.
question.
Common question is right. I asked the same question before. So we have a motion made from Commissioner Halbert. Do we have a second?
Hernandez will second. Sorry, Kathy.
I heard Commissioner Narum as a second. We have a matter of first and a second. Any comments before we take a vote? Okay, this time I checked more carefully. Seeing none, could we take a roll call vote, please?
Director Bonanno.
Aye.
Vice Chair Halbert.
Aye.
Director Hernandez.
Aye.
Director Josie.
Aye.
Director Kick, she is not in this meeting still. Director Narum.
Aye.
Chair Brown.
Yes, aye.
Passes unanimously.
Wonderful. We're on to agenda item 5, which is establishing standing committees and members. In your staff report, could you please explain a little background? We have quite a few new members and this process is a little complex. So staff?
I'll take that one. As you know, each fiscal year, the board selects a chair and a vice chair. And we do have 2 committees, the Finance and Administration Committee and also the Projects and Services Committee. and each of the board members have been a part of one of those committees. And so the bylaws state that the chairs of the two standing committees, the F&A and the P&S, be filled by the two jurisdictions who are not serving as chair and vice chair of the board. So as you're aware, you've elected board member Carla Brown to be your chair and board member David Hobart to be your vice chair in fiscal year 22. So the two committee chairs would need to come from either Dublin or Livermore. And so as you look at the resolution under item 3 and item 4 of the resolution, you'll see that we have the same committee assignments. So the committee that you were serving on, you're recommended to continue serving on. And we have as the recommended chair, Brittany Kick from Livermore, and as vice chair, Kathy Narum from Pleasanton. And then under the Projects and Services Committee, we have recommended as chair, Jean Josie, and as vice chair, Gina Bonanno. And so thus you've, with those recommendations, you've maintained compliance, if you will, with your bylaws in that the chairs recommended are from Livermore and from Dublin. So we didn't receive any comments from board members that they wanted to switch committees. So we've just kept the committees with the same overall board members serving on them. And then the recommendations from the chair that Chair Brown has looked at and recommended for you today.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or on the assignments for staff? Okay, seeing none. Do we have any public comment on this item?
I do not see anybody that has their hand raised, so no.
Okay, I'll close the public hearing and ask what our board would like to do. Would anybody like to make a motion?
I would like to make the motion to go ahead with the recommendations that were listed for the rotating cities as they stand and recommended by our board in the past and by staff.
Thank you.
second it.
Okay, we have a motion made by Hernandez and seconded by Narum. Any discussion? Great. Seeing no hands, could we take a roll call vote, please?
Director Bonanno,
Aye.
Vice Chair Halbert,
Aye.
Director Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Josie,
Aye.
Director Kick is still not present for this meeting. Director Narum,
Aye.
Chair Brown,
Aye.
passes unanimously.
Just doing so well here today. All right, agenda item 6 is the appointment of the LAVTA board members, excuse me, to the Paratransit Demonstration Project Committee. Staff, could you present your report today?
You bet. So I'll be brief on this. In February, the board approved an MOU to work collaboratively with County Connection in a 15-month pilot program where we would use the same operator for the paratransit service, which is your door-to-door service for disabled folks who don't have access to your fixed route system. So long story short, in that discussion, board member Hobart requested, or Vice Chair Hobart requested, that staff create a joint committee between LAFTA and County Connection. And I think that the overall objective there in the conversation was that Vice Chair Hobart was really wanting to make sure that the board took a look at the goals and objectives that we were trying to achieve with the pilot project and being able to measure those and report back to the board which were obtained and perhaps where we might have fallen short in the pilot program before the board considers how they want to move forward, whether it's jointly with County Connection permanently or whether we want to scale back and just issue another RFP to have our services operated solely or governed solely by LAFTA. So with that said, Vice Chair Hobart had an interest, obviously, in watching those goals. And so the recommendation is that Chair Carla Brown serve on that committee, and also Vice Chair David Hobart serve on that committee. It's a committee that has not decided upon a frequency that they'll meet. They'll decide that in the first meeting when they take a look at the goals. But it will be a committee that will be joined by 2 board members from County Connection, and Mayor Hudson is one of those committee members, and I'm not sure that the other committee member was identified for me, but at least I have the one committee member identified. So that's your staff report, and be happy to answer any questions you might have on that.
I do have one question. We have just members, and I wondered if staff would consider adding an alternate. I know Supervisor Hubbard is a busy person, and I know sometimes I have conflicts in schedules. So would, especially kind of staying with the mayoral position and a community that's affected, which would be Dublin. So is there, would staff consider allowing the addition of an alternate for Mayor Hernandez?
I think that's a great idea. I would imagine Michael Connor and they would want to agendize that then for the next meeting.
That would probably be the best thing, yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right, do you have any questions on this agenda item 6? Seeing none, do we have anybody from the public that would like to speak, Jennifer?
Again, he does not have his hand raised right now, so no.
Okay, sounds great. All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing and bring it back. What would this commission like to do?
I'll move the staff recommendation and request that we bring back at our next meeting an agendized item to add an alternate to this committee.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion made by Director Josie and seconded by Director Bonanno. Comments? All right, let's take a roll call vote.
Director Bonanno,
Aye.
Vice Chair Halbert,
Aye.
Director Hernandez,
Aye.
Director Josie,
Aye.
Director Kick is still not in this meeting right now. Director Narum,
Aye.
Chair Brown,
Yes, aye.
passes unanimously.
We're just flying through this meeting. I don't know why Bob Warner had such a slow, just teasing him because he's not here. Okay, staff, you're doing terrific. Could we go on to our executive director's report?
You bet. I'll keep it going very briefly. There's quite a bit going on behind the scenes, and your staff's really engaged in not only the recovery efforts with your fixed route and your paratransit system, but also, regional initiatives and multiple capital projects. So with that said, maybe I'll, Tony, if you could just take a few minutes, bring the board up to speed on ridership and how things are flowing with the recovery. And then I'll take a few minutes on the Blue Ribbon Task Force, and then I'll also cover just a few capital projects.
So ridership for the month of June dropped a little bit from May, which was to be expected with school being not in session. We were averaging about 1,600 riders per weekday in May, and it's dropped to about 1,500 per day in June, which is considering the fact that we were carrying about 200 passengers a day to schools. We actually must have gained 100 members of the general public, if you want to look at it that way, because we lost 200 students, but we're only down 100. School starts back in about 33 days, but who's counting? That starts in Pleasanton on August the 11th.
Hey, Josie's counting the days.
Yeah. Oh man. And Dublin starts the following week, and Livermore starts the week after that on I believe the 24th. So we're making all the preparations for getting those school services all together. It's a little bit more challenging this year than it has been in years past. Most of you probably are aware of some state legislation that had to do with morning bell times for high schools and changing those to a later time. And both Pleasanton and Dublin have chosen to implement that a year earlier than required, and they're going to do it this fall. And as a result, whereas in past years, Dublin and Pleasanton high schools were the starting bells were offset. Now they're very close to the same time, and so we can't use the same buses to serve both Dublin and Pleasanton schools. So it's a little more challenging for us as far as having equipment and drivers in place to make that happen. But I think we're on track to be ready when school starts back up. And I'll kind of end right there.
So Jean Josie has her hand raised.
Question?
Yeah, a quick question. Is that only in the morning that the bell schedules are in sync, or is that afternoon as well?
In the morning, they're really close. The afternoon times are close as well. Yeah. And I know that you work at Dublin High School, and I've made some inquiries about the red curb between Devona and the entrance to the parking lot there. And if that's not painted, but the day before school starts, you'll see Tamara, Tone, and I out there in jumpsuits with red paint because that curb is going to get painted one way or another.
I'll be out there with you. I have made inquiries about that at both the school and the city level. I'll do so again.
Thank you.
Your lab boards, thank you. All right. Any other questions on this item?
Yeah, I have a quick question. Thank you for that report, Tony. I'm sort of new to the board and getting up to speed. What's roughly what the fraction of ridership is from our school system?
Of our total system?
Yeah, just trying to get an idea of how much of the ridership is due to students. Just, yeah.
Rough number, about a third.
Third, okay. Just trying to get calibrated. That's probably a little more than I would have expected, but it's good to hear that our students are using this.
Pre-COVID, we were carrying about 1,000 a day in Dublin and 1,000 a day in Pleasanton, and Livermore is a little less than that, but it's picked up with the free pass program that we have in place in Livermore now. And we get really good ridership out of East Avenue Middle and out of Livermore High School.
Great. Thank you for that.
Tony, are we going to be doing a Ride the Bus for Free week like we've done in the past?
I think we're going to go a little beyond that. Michael, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I think the short answer, Chair Brown, is that the bus operators in Eastern Alameda County are going to go fare free for the entire month of September in an effort to really motivate folks and give them an incentive to get back onto the public transit, both from a student perspective, but also from a pro rider, choice rider, however you want to pitch it, perspective.
We're starting August 11th in Pleasanton. September means that I've got 2 weeks while we're waiting for that free ridership. Could it be like a month? Could it start earlier?
What's your thoughts, Tony? Do we normally do the students ride free promotion in August, or do we normally do that in September?
We usually do it the first 2 weeks that all three school districts are in session. And this week, they've really thrown us a curveball by having one start on August the 11th, one start on August the 16th or 17th, and one start on the 24th. So to wait until all three districts are in session so that everybody gets their full 2 weeks would put us the last week of August. And you're really close then to the first week of September anyway.
I guess I recall that it was an enticement to ride the bus early on so they'd stay through the season. So once school starts, hey, the bus is coming by, kid, jump on it and then stay on it through the year. I guess that was sort of my recollection.
Yeah, I think that's the case.
Isn't there a way to stagger the starts, Tony? I mean, the kids go to one district or the other. They don't go to, from one district to the other. Start it one day in Pleasanton and another day in Dublin. Is that hard?
It wouldn't be for me, but it could be for our drivers.
Well, they know what city they're driving in. I don't know.
All right, for
I
discussion.
think Director Josie has the solution.
Honestly, if I could weigh in here, I think it's not a bad idea to wait until after the school's been in session for a couple of weeks, because it might be even more effective, honestly. Kids, a lot of times parents are going to drop them off the first couple of weeks anyway. So whether the bus is free the first week of school, and we all know, those of us who've dropped kids off at high school or work at high schools know that the first couple of weeks, the traffic is a zoo no matter what. And if then after the week or two, when parents have gotten super frustrated, buses come in and say, hey, we're free, try us out, after they've had a little bit of a pain point, I think that's not a bad thing, as opposed to being free the first couple weeks and then not being free after that. So I would advocate for actually staying with the September timeframe. I think it will be more effective than having it start on day one, honestly.
Okay, well, I'm totally open for it, but I'm just kind of recollecting what we did before, recalling, and one of the ways was to avoid that massive driver snarl that happens in front of the schools. At least that's what I recall, but I'm really flexible. I don't have anybody in school anymore, thank you. But that was the motive. It's like, wow, you drive them the first day or two and you go, I don't like this.
First day of school is always a mess, no matter what you do.
It is. First day,
Always
second day.
going to be a mess. Yeah, first and
After
second day.
that.
First week is always going to be a mess, quite frankly, because the freshman parents are not putting their kids on the bus the first week, no matter what you do.
Right. Okay. All right. As long as the message gets out to the parents, that's the other critical part. So whatever you do start, and I don't think we need to make a decision because this is just this is the executive director's update. But whenever you do start, we just want to let everybody know. Everybody know. Okay.
We do a lot of outreach through the schools and also through Peach Jar, which seems to be the social media venue that the schools use, and we use that heavily at the start of the school year.
I'd like to see if Director Josie would like a bus pass.
No, I'm close enough to walk, quite frankly.
You're lucky. Very lucky.
I typically don't, but I could.
Is now when we talk about busing over at Las Positas, since we're on the schools and busing topic, is that ready to go as well, Las Positas College?
Actually, no. Las Positas, at least for the fall semester, is going to remain predominantly remote learning.
Mm-hmm.
And they made that decision several months ago. I think they're increasing the number of students who will be on campus, but it's not going to be anything close to what it was before, probably until the spring semester.
What about the small fee that we collected so that everybody can ride the bus for free? Is that still happening?
The students pay $7 if they're part-time, $8 if they're full-time, in order to get a sticker for their ID card to ride the bus for free. But our collection of that depends on how many rides are taken.
Oh, I thought everybody paid, all students paid.
They do pay,
Okay.
but the school has the money,
Oh,
and we send them an invoice based on the number of times a student boards a bus.
gotcha. All right. Good to know. Okay. Thank you, Tony. You are always a wealth of information. That's ridership. Next topic is pandemic recovery.
Yeah, so, we've talked about the Blue Ribbon Task Force and the work that they're doing. They're looking to conclude their work sometime this summer. And they continue to move forward in the direction of having, as you read in the staff report, a network management way of looking and managing certain roles that a transit agency historically has managed within each individual agency. So the network manager or network management, in particular, the short-term strategies are for the management to look at fare integration, so have consistent fares across each of the transit agencies in the Bay Area, so that each was charging in a similar fashion. Easy to understand is kind of the golden rule there. Bus transit priority, which our member agencies have made a huge priority for LAFTA, with the rapid system in particular, having basically signal priority at intersections and queue jumps and so on. So those two things are a big priority of this network management. And then also branding, which would include mapping and wayfinding, having those be consistent throughout the Bay Area. So those are kind of the top three. You'll see that there's quite a few bullet points. I did include kind of a double asterisk on the capital project prioritization. I just think that one has the potential to create a lot of havoc, and the Blue Ribbon Task Force is not considering that as a near-term priority. So I think that's a good thing to have, continued vetted out, if you will, in the region. But they are looking at the others more as midterm that don't have an asterisk next to them. So that's my report on the Blue Ribbon Task Force. In regard to capital projects, there's quite a few of them that we're working on. You have Atlantis, which is your operations and maintenance facility that you have in planning, with the key issue being there that we're out of space here at the Rutan facility. So as you'll recall, we've done 30% design on Atlantis, on both the operations and admin building and also on the maintenance building. It looks like we will be funded through ACTC for the 60% design and also the bridging documents, which is basically, this is viewed as a design build project. So once we get to that 60% design in the plans, we're hoping to be able to put that out on the street and bring on board a design builder if we've got the money for the project at that point. I think the only other thing to report on Atlantis is that we did bring on board, at least temporarily, a lobbyist to help us out in Sacramento. There's a lot of discussion going on right now in Sacramento about the surplus. And we spotted a few opportunities where Atlantis might be able to potentially be considered as far as funding. So Gus Corey, you may know him. He's currently up in Sacramento working on behalf of LAFTA. If we want more than a 6-month arrangement there, my thought was just to put out an RFP and have the board select a permanent lobbyist. But in the meantime, he had the availability and was kind of in some really critical areas where the funding discussion was being had, and had been asked by the governor's office to help with some of the deals. And we felt like it would be really advantageous to have him looking for funding for not only Atlantis, but also your other major projects, such as your Zero bus purchases coming up. As you'll recall, with the state, we need to choose a path for acquiring zero emission buses in the near future. And so we've also asked him to look for funding that would help us in acquiring those zero emission buses. Just a couple of other things really, and you may have some on your mind. So, certainly here for questions, but you'll recall on the buses when the pandemic was kind of really getting momentum and things looked pretty grim, we installed germ barriers on the buses, which is basically if you're walking on the bus, as you go up to pay your fare at the fare box, we put a door in between the riders and the operators. And it's a fairly permanent door. It's got a steel housing, a steel bottom half, and then the top half of the door is plexiglass. So obviously there can be interaction between the operator and the rider, and it actually slides back so that there's no issues with reflection between the plexiglass and the mirrors. So it's fairly sophisticated, and the drivers have really appreciated it. And we've spotted a couple of ways which we think we could modify that door if we want to keep it on permanently, which I think is kind of the sentiment of the drivers and the management team. In modifying the door, it allows just a little more turning movement if you're in a mobility device to get onto the bus. We're certainly ADA compliant at the moment, but we've just spotted an opportunity, I think, to make it a little easier for folks in mobility devices. So I just wanted to let you know we were working at modifying that. That would totally be within my spending authority. And so we're just kind of looking to make sure that it is going to be something that would be valuable to folks in mobility devices before we move forward. And then finally, the Dublin parking garage project. I know this is a really high priority for folks, especially in the Dublin Pleasanton area, but quite frankly, anywhere. As traffic starts to really increase on the 580 and in other areas when parking becomes more and more appreciated as we move forward. So we're the lead on the project, or the project sponsor, I should say, and the county's the lead on it. And really, I think that what we're trying to do is just keep that project on schedule and within budget. The next big milestone is for the county to bring on board a design build firm. And we're hoping that that happens before the end of the calendar year. And I think just long-term wise, we're still hoping that we can get that project completed by mid-2023. And then, I'll just stop right there, other than to say that, your staff continues to work a bunch on also your Valley Link project. And there's a new deputy executive director in that project. And we're really working hard with Caltrans on the 580 piece. We've had some critical meetings in the last 2 weeks with ACTC on the managed lanes. And we've come up with some ideas that we think could save the public, in the order of magnitude of probably $300 to $400 million just in this work that we've been doing with ACTC and the way that we'll approach the managed lanes. So there's a lot of great work going on there, and it continues to move forward. And certainly that project's right in the thick of things funding wise with the state budget. So August will be an important month for Valley Link as that budget deals kind of continue to get cut. Between the lawmakers and the governor's office. So with that, I'll just be quiet, and if there's questions, be happy to answer them.
Any questions?
I have a couple.
Please.
Thanks, Mike, for that report. Question one is on the driver shortage you mentioned, and getting back up to pre-COVID ridership levels. I'm not sure, are we not at pre-COVID levels because we don't have enough riders, or because we don't have enough drivers? And how serious is the driver shortage, and when does it become the critical item if it's not already, to getting back up to full routes service?
Yeah, a couple of really good questions. Tone, are you on and available to answer that? If not, I can answer that.
You want to take a stab at it, and I'll chime in?
Yeah, I mean, my sense is that ridership is recovering across the Bay Area, but it's probably not recovering, as quickly as one might imagine. It's taking probably a slower recovery pace. My sense is that if you put all the service back out on the street that you had pre-COVID, that you'd have you'd probably pick up a few more riders based on having more service out, but that it would probably still be fairly low. And I'm hoping that it recovers over the next 12 months, that we start to really get that ridership back. But you know what, Tony, you're my planner, and you've certainly been in the meetings where they've been talking about the recovery and the pace of that recovery. Anything to add on what I may have mentioned there?
I saw an article today about BART and their ridership, and they're up a bit from where they were previously, but they're still, 70 to 75% down. I also saw an article that a research study was commissioned by the MTA in New York, and their researcher estimated that full recovery, whatever that looks like, is probably not going to happen before the end of 2024. And their expectation was, because of the whole change in the way people view the necessity to show up in an office, that 80 to 90% of pre-COVID ridership might be as good as they might hope for. And that's MTA New York. That's number one. I trust that they would hire a decent researcher. And number two, that's what they're reporting. So, I mean, when COVID hit, we had a consecutive streak of 6 straight months of 10% ridership increases. We had set an all-time, a 10-year high for ridership in a month in October of 2019. We were riding pretty high. And we were carrying over 7,000 people a day. And now we're carrying about 1,600. So, I mean, in my mind, if we get back to even 5,000 a day in the next year and a half or so, I think we should be really happy. I think the fact that we do have a good percentage of our ridership is based out of the schools, that I believe that group will come back quickly. And the thing that is going to be the slowest probably to come back is the people who used to drive to the BART station at 7:15 in the morning and find the parking lots were full, now can go at 10 o'clock in the morning and have their choice of any of 800 parking spaces. And until those parking garages at the East and West Station are full, we lose that market of people who ride our bus to transfer to BART. And that was a pretty considerable part of our ridership as well. That's about 20% of our ridership are people transferring to and from BART.
Well, that helps me get a picture. Again, I'm sort of filling in a picture here as I get more involved with this.
Hey, we're all learning on this one.
So it sounds like drivers are not the problem at this point. And it sounds like this expectation of getting back up to 80% over potentially, I mean, realize that was a study not done on our system, but and not to belabor this now, but is there a business plan for, a 60 to 70%, 80% ridership for the next few years that you all have come up with that sort of sustains the system, but accepts the fact that ridership is going to be perhaps a quarter lower than it's been traditionally?
We were actually just in the very early stages of doing our 5-year short range transit plan when COVID hit. And so we kind of put that on a pause button until we kind of were able to get a number one, a feel for when things were going to return to whatever normal is. And so the consultant is still under contract, and we're just, getting ready to get started again to look at the crystal ball as to what the next 3 to 5 years is going to look like.
Okay, thanks very much for that.
Chair Brown, Director Josie has her hand raised.
Sure, one word faster than me. Director Josie, go right
Thank
ahead.
you. A follow-up to that, how worried are we about the driver shortage impacting the school routes, especially with Dublin and Pleasanton being basically at the same time? I know that's been a problem in the past on some of the busier school routes where we have to add multiple buses to the same route. I don't know if that's been an issue in Pleasanton. I know it's been an issue in Dublin where we have multiple buses on the same route because there's so many students on some of those routes, particularly in East Dublin. And my recollection is that we've had issues adding buses to those routes in the past because of finding enough drivers to drive those routes. I think in 2017 or 2018, that was a problem. How worried are we about that for this fall?
We have if we don't have enough drivers, the fallback position, the first fallback position is always to have road supervisors who are also equipped to drive bus routes, and that's been done in the past. One of the problems we had a couple of years ago also was not just a shortage of drivers, but a shortage of buses. And so the last resort sort of thing that we would do would be to maybe pull a bus off of a trip on the Route 30 or the Route 10 where they have 15-minute frequency, and use that bus to run a school tripper and then jump back into service on the rapid route. And we did that. That was 3 years ago, I believe. You're right.
Tone, any sense? Tone on our staff has really been dialed in with the hiring. They've been having open houses. And Tone, what's your sense heading into mid-August as to where we'll be with operators? We're getting really close on our projections of having sufficient operators for the schools.
So let me piggyback on what Tony just said. So staffing issue has been an ongoing challenge for us and most agencies for years. So one good thing that came out of this pandemic is for us to kind of realign our service level with our staffing level. And currently, in terms of service level, we're about 76% of the pre-COVID level. With the school coming back in the fall, that brings us up to around 80, low 80%. So we're taking this opportunity to ramp up service as resources allow. So based on our current staffing level and incorporating in our recruiting efforts and where we think we're going to be by August 15, I think we feel pretty comfortable in being able to meet the needs to deliver the school service along with the current service that we're operating.
Gotcha.
So we've been working very closely with MB, who's our contractor, and trying to explore every possible outlet out there and getting people to apply. So we attended job fair. We recently hosted an open house where we invite people who are interested in applying for a job to come in, talk to our staff, tour the facility, learn more about the job. And that was so successful that we're going to have another one scheduled for this Saturday.
Michael Conran has his hand raised.
Thank you. I just wanted to note, and Tone just referred to it. I mean, our fixed route service is provided through a contractor, MV. And so they're the ones that actually hire the drivers, but we've worked very cooperatively with them over the years, both in assisting with them recruiting drivers and us trying to find some ways to incentivize drivers. A little bit of a restriction in that they've got a union contract. So in terms of their pay and benefits, it's really an arrangement between the union and MV. But we've done different driver awards and incentives and things to try to keep them. The overall driver market is a little bit interesting. With the Google buses and the high tech companies, they will compete with us for drivers. I think that service is probably down at the moment, but it can come back. So it's something we really certainly pre-COVID, we've been working with for probably 5-7 years with the challenge, and we just keep it. But I think we've got some good tools that we are employing.
I think to continue on that for just a second, we did increase the incentive. The sign-on bonus now for new drivers coming on board is now $3,000. And a referral bonus for any current employee who refers a driver is the same $3,000. But that's kind of universal. If I actually looked at ZipRecruiter today for this area, and over the road drivers, most of those companies have $5,000 sign-on bonuses right now. So we're competing with a lot of other people for people with CDLs, and a 40-foot truck full of meat doesn't make as much noise as a bus of school kids.
Well, that is true. That is true. Have you been doing marketing and outreach for that sign-on bonus? Because I didn't know about it and it's pretty interesting. Pleasanton Weekly, Independent, local radio, anything like that's been used?
It just got approved last week, so it will be coming soon. And there was a notice put in the patch today, and it'll be on Nextdoor probably tomorrow. And then as soon as I can get an ad done, it'll be in the Weekly and the Independent.
That's good. Okay.
And KKIQ.
All right. Any other questions?
Director
Before we-
Bonanno?
You know what? I'm learning how this works. So as soon as you raise your hand, you go to the top corner. So go ahead, Gina.
Sorry, one more. So on the zero emission bus initiative, I'm sure we'll hear more about it as it, or maybe everybody else is up to speed on it. Again, my apologies. I'll try to get up to speed, and not only taking time in the meetings, but the zero emission buses, is there a goal for the whole fleet to be zero emissions in some time frame coming up? I know 2035, 2040, kind of consistent with some of the other state and local goals. And is there a mix? Is it planned to be a mix of EV and fuel cell, or can you just give me a real quick summary of that initiative and what that looks like?
Yeah, so CTE is the company that's doing your master plan for how you'll obtain zero emissions. And it's been a few months since they presented to the board, and Tone and I were talking this afternoon, talking about having them back, because I think we're getting pretty close to identifying a path for the agency. Long story short, most agencies have been using the battery electric bus with the thought that they would transition to hydrogen once the fuel on hydrogen came down low enough to make that economic investment superior over the battery electric bus. With the hydrogen, it's just got a lot of benefits that suit public transit. The fueling time is comparable to fueling a bus with diesel, and the distance a bus can go on hydrogen fuel is also comparable to diesel buses as far as that's concerned. So those are superior to the performance over a battery electric bus. So with First Element Fuel coming to Livermore and creating a huge distribution center for hydrogen fuel, we've been working behind the scenes and with First Element Fuel, with hydrogen manufacturers, including Gillig and their intentions with the hydrogen bus, being able to have something available in the marketplace for LAFTA. And so just an early kind of look-see-loo at what likely will come to you from CTE will be a scenario that actually has us beginning with a hydrogen bus and setting up an aggressive replacement cycle with our current fleet as they're retired, and bringing on board the zero emission hydrogen buses. So it's not quite baked fully with CTE. I think we've got a few more meetings to go with them, and they've got a few more things to analyze, but that's kind of an early glimpse, I think, of where we'll be with the technology. Just over the next, tomorrow, correct me if I'm wrong, but over the next 8 years, I believe we have somewhere in the neighborhood of 30 to 40 buses that will actually be retired and that we'll need to be replacing. I think there's 3 or 4 different procurements during that period. So I think it'll be up to the technology and where it's at and where the fuel prices are at, and whether there's state money available to bridge the gap between what a hybrid diesel bus costs and a hydrogen bus cost would be. So it's kind of fluid right now, but my thoughts are that things will fall into place for the agency with the hydrogen technology.
Great, thanks very much.
And then can I add on something real quick, Michael?
Sure.
So in terms of the regulation, CARB does require that the entire fleet has to be zero emission by 2040. So with the vehicle having a 12-year useful life, the first requirement would be that if you buy any buses in 2028, a percentage of it has to be zero emission. So I think the first lot is 25%. So we have a few years to decide, but that's good rather than having to make decisions today.
Really good information. Thank you. I was in an ACTC meeting today and they were giving us some data about the Bay Bridge single occupancy vehicles, and they're rising quickly to their pre-pandemic numbers. But of course, as we know, BART ridership and bus ridership are down for AC Transit. Of course, we know that here at LAVTA as well. But I don't know if anybody's, so this might be just a supposition and a food for thought, but that riders of BART to San Francisco, for example, the riders even as we transport Pleasanton residents, Dublin and Livermore to our BART stations, that those riders oftentimes have been able to work from home. Of course, it's certainly not true for everyone, but perhaps some of those software engineers that needed to have their bottom in a seat at Salesforce Tower, for example, are able to work from home. Salespeople are able to work from home, where they felt that here in the East Bay, they had to take transit to get to their job location. If they can work from home, and that falls under sort of this general job category that has that flexibility, that would reduce ridership on transit, especially transit where you're having multiple people sit in. But if I'm going to go work on machines and I'm going to take a truck to San Francisco, I can't ride a transit, for example, or if I'm a service industry, and even some other kinds of positions that just don't lend themselves for that. So with that, I'm going to talk about the next meeting. It's August 2nd. Are we planning that as an in-person meeting, Michael and Michael, or are we going to hold out until the governor's cutoff in September?
So, my thought is generally you cancel your August meeting. We've kind of kept it on the calendar as a placeholder in case something popped up and we needed to have that meeting. But all indications at this point are that we won't need the August meeting. And then for the September meeting, staff has been working on just what are the options available, whether we're all back in the same location or whether we can have a hybrid meeting. So staffs, I know that some of the city councils have been having what they call hybrid meetings. So we're taking a look at that. And I don't think we've dialed in yet on exactly, how we could have that happen with LAFTA, but I guess if you wanted it to be hard and fast, we could certainly say that we'll definitely in September have a in-person meeting. Whether it's hybrid or not, I think it's just kind of, we're still trying to see how that would work.
All right, all right, we'll take a vote on the August meeting. Sorry to jump back. I did have a question on the executive director's report. This is attachment 1, page 2, under paratransit monthly unlinked boardings. It shows, this is the first graph halfway down the page. It shows no unlinked for April and a surge in May. Is it possible that data for the current orange box, is it possible the April data is missing and was put into May, or is that April data just missing?
Tone, you have any thoughts there? It looks like in April, it just doesn't have any current year ridership there. It sounds like a data error on our end.
It is. There's a delay in getting the report from County Connection. So we weren't able, we have it now, but we didn't have it at the time of the compilation of the board packet.
Okay.
Because Tone, you have it in May. So is the May should have been in the April month, or is it a slip?
We didn't have April, May, or June, so I think that's an oversight.
Okay, I'd just like to correct it so that when we're comparing in the future, we'll have that data in there.
Okay.
Good. All right, so do we need a vote, Michael, on the August meeting, or will you let us know? What would you like? If we're going to hold a meeting in August?
We'll let you know. Right now it's scheduled. We'll cancel it if it's not needed.
Sounds good. Okay, any closing comments by anyone? All right, with that, have a wonderful August. Stay cool. Meeting's adjourned. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.